Greetings, we are Group 5 of the Multinational Corporations Global Strategy and Social Responsibility class with lecturer Mas Roseno Affandi from BINUS University, majoring in International Relations. Before we continue, let us introduce ourselves. My name is Adrian with my partner,
Annisya Febriana,
Amarai, Izza,
Adeline, Vanessa, Zabur,
Thomas, Jeffersin Ang as the group members.
Disclaimer, this video presentation is purposely made for this semester final exam in 2022.
We decided to choose Apple because we acknowledge that its capability poses a significant challenge to multinationals of a similar nature, as well as because several technological breakouts from Apple itself presented a competition to multinationals like Samsung, which we imagine as Apple's rival. With a competitive level that is comparable to Apple's and a little else to distinguish it from Apple, Samsung is considered as being able to compete with Apple due to product advancement. As for the country's expansion destination, we will focus on Indonesia, where we consider Indonesia has enough demand for the two devices the company has.
The success of MNC in expanding abroad cannot be spared from the role of their stakeholder. These stakeholders are related to the expansion motive that MNC use. As we know, the John Dunning has categories to expansion motive, namely commercial motive, which consists of market seekers. As we know, the MNC companies such as Apple is expanding overseas to expand their market. While in resource seeker, Apple has sought research from abroad to get cheaper and larger capacity, and Apple's strategic alliance seeker has increased competitiveness to survive and sustain Apple abroad. Meanwhile, for socio-political motive, before we expanding into the host country, Apple has also adapted as MNC company that is accountable to the community and the state of the country itself. There are two main factors for MNC to seek its competitiveness, namely to further increase the company capacity than its competitors, and the company must be able to play a social and political role. Before MNC expand to the host country, there are approach to market, or we can call market actor such as Apple, and non-market actor is Indonesia and its government. Because by establishing good relationship with the non-market actor, MNC can easily enter the host country and also build business without any problem. Because MNC like Apple must be able to establish good relation in Indonesia, Apple reputation will also be well received by the public. MNC such as Apple are expanding into developing countries such as Indonesia with the aim of increased income. And there has been emerging market area to analyze Apple and its competitors, namely Samsung. It will be analyzed through a value chain, 5-factor, diamond theory, and business model canvas.
What is the value chain? So, the value chain is the concept of a company business activities in the creation of services and products that are planned through a process that begins with the production, distribution, to service and marketing. The purpose of MNC implementing value chain is to identify various functional areas in the business. The value chain itself is divided into two activities, namely support activities and primary activities. Supporting activities in the value chains that support the main activities but are not directly involved in the production. Supporting activities have the potential to increase efficiency and effectiveness to achieve the first part of supporting activities is infrastructure company strategy. In Apple, corporate infrastructure consists of general management, administrative sector, financial management, accounting, and strategic planning skills. And Apple has 519 stores in 25 countries and 123,000 employees. And Apple also uses a transnational strategy to maintain the company characteristic, especially in Indonesia. Meanwhile, if we look at Samsung, infrastructure includes financial support, planning, and foreign investment in the host country. Samsung has 213 stores in 74 countries and 275,000 employees. Samsung has used a multi-domestic strategy decision, and Samsung operations are centered on strategy units in each country and adapting products to a local market. So, in the conclusion, Samsung is more superior than Apple because infrastructure based and uses a multi-domestic strategy that makes it easier for Samsung to develop in the host country market. For the next part is human capital. On Apple have a people management strategy to maximize individual potential on their abilities. Apple has facilitated learning programs on the Apple Garden Campus and Apple Development Academy, and Apple also prioritizes recruitment and remuneration. And in Samsung has provided opportunities for individuals to develop their talents. And Samsung head office has collaborated with Chungnam High School, namely Chungnam Samsung Academy. As a result of both, Apple is more superior because it has better and better human management. So we can see from the Apple company exploring the potential of every individuals in the Apple Development Academy. In the R&D, SIM and technology, on the development of Apple technology to develop products with quality and innovation so that Apple products will be sophisticated and up to date. On the iPhone smartphone, there is face recognition, which can maintain customer privacy. And the launch of M2 chip makes the MacBook laptop products capable of supporting up to 24 GB of memory and with the M2 chips. And if we look at Samsung is increasingly expanding into host country to make R&D. Samsung is focused to recalling technology, and Samsung customers are also very concerned about the Go Green technology. And Samsung software has no side effects and can boost the battery. As a result, Apple is considered superior because using of M2 chips makes Apple MacBook laptop products more sophisticated and fast multi-core performance and power efficiency.
Last but not least is accounting, administration, and finance. On Apple in 2021, the release of the iPhone 13 series generating revenue is $123.95 billion with a net profit $34.63 billion. And in 2022, Apple revenue is $97.28 billion with a net profit $25.01 billion. Revenue in 2021 until March 2022 is stable, and overall share price in June is $145.35. And in Samsung, revenue in 2021 until March 2022 is increased 57%, and in January until March 2022, 770.8 trillion won, and with the net profit 11.32 trillion won and 8.9 billion. The appearance of Samsung S22 in March increased operating profit with 50% or 14.12 trillion won. As a result, based on the latest data in 2022, both of them jointly launched the latest smartphone products. Based on these sales, both of them did manage to improve quality and revenue from 2021, which has decreased due to the pandemic, but based on the data we obtained, Apple was more profitable in terms of revenue. In terms of profit and share of the last smartphone product is the iPhone 13.
Next is the primary activities section, which is an activity that is directly related to the creations of products, sales, delivery, maintenance, and services of the Apple company. Then it will be compared with Samsung primary activities to see who is the superior. The first is inbound logistics. Apple has hundreds of suppliers in the world with economics of scale and a very broad business, where Apple itself is very dominant in terms of bargaining in meeting the needs of the supply chain so that Apple can get a cost advantage in purchasing other necessities. On the other hand, the founder of Samsung is a conglomerate that has many connecting, making it easier for them to partner with the supply chain. For now, they have around 2,500 established partners, and most of them are located in Asia and some are spread in America and the UK. Samsung itself has a logistics subsidiary with digital capabilities that allow them to fulfill their logistics needs to show that in their management and distribution they are much more efficient. From the comparison of inbound logistics, Samsung is more superior because the wealth factor of it's the founder make it easier for Samsung to get connection from various countries. Secondly, because of the logistic company that makes it easier for them to manage the product to distribute. 1 point for Samsung. The next part is operations. Apple, in carrying out its operations, divides market segmentation into 5 sectors, including America, Europe, China, Japan, and Asia Pacific. Americas, most of the company's sales come from sectors comprising North and South America. Sales of this segment increased by almost 2 until 7% in 2020 compared to 2019. Europe. Sales are dynamic here. Like in 2019, the sales were declining, and in 2020 they were again increasing, and it's obviously a great success. And the third one is Greater China. For Apple, this is not a promising sector. In the last 2 years in a row, sales in the segment have decreased. The only reason behind this is this segment is packed with local competitors with low price range. The next one is Japan. The sector is rather constant in terms of sales. Sales were the same in 2019 and 2020. The last one is Asia Pacific. For now, it is emerging as a new potential sector for sales. In 2020, sales of this segment increased by 10%, and it is obviously a great percentage so far. The next one is Samsung. Samsung started its business in 1938 as a trading company. In 1980, Samsung entered the telecommunication hardware industry, and Samsung is a South Korean conglomerate headquartered in Seoul, South Korea. The company has expanded its operation to various parts of the world, from the home market to the US and several other regions. As a large information technology company, Samsung has good operation when it comes to converting inputs into outputs for sales to customers. Samsung has 12 major research and development centers outside of Korea. As a result, from the operations, Apple is more superior because the spread of market segmentation is wider and not only focused on one region. 1 point for Apple. The next one is outbound logistics. Apple is the one of the well-known multinational companies, and of course the distribution of finished product will be very much happening and must be considered intensively. Apple has broad channels for distributing its product to clients, from retail store to internet shopping and its own branded store. Companies usually ship finished products to Apple Store and some via e-commerce. E-commerce sales are considered to have played a large role in the source of value inbound logistics. This is because e-commerce is cheaper than Apple Store sales. Next, if we see Samsung, the products that have been Samsung produced are widely distributed and sent to various markets in the world. Samsung has integrated companies both named Samsung Electronic Logitech and Samsung SDC. These two companies play a major role in producing outbound logistics. They transport finished goods to distribute to 120 countries around the world. As a result, although both of them have good quality and good outbound logistic mechanism, however, in our opinion, Apple is better in this case because of the good mechanism and strategies in presenting a product or product packaging that is environmentally friendly. 1 point for Apple. The next part is marketing and sales. Apple, in order to increasing sales, Apple performs marketing composition based on the following categories: Apple Retail, online store, for example, iBox, Digimap, Airphone, you name it, and e-commerce. The third one is direct sales force, third-party cellular network carriers, wholesaler, retailers, value-added resellers. Through direct distribution, Apple gets 34% of its sales, while with indirect distribution, it gets 66%. On the other hand, in increasing sales, Samsung makes marketing composition based on the following categories, like Samsung Retail on online stores such as Samsung, Airphone, Urban Republic, and e-commerce. The Samsung company also use in-store promotion and other traditional channels such as print media for marketing and promotion. As a result, in marketing and sales, there are two more or less the same, but overall, and look at the first indicator in terms of marketing, Apple is ahead of Samsung or another brand in the smartphone industry. Apple is still superior to Samsung. 1 point for Apple. The last part in the primary activities is after sales services. Apple is famous for the quality of services from 3 stages: pre-purchase, during purchases, and post-purchases. Apple usually has employees who are
headquarters and trained in services. Customer can talk professionally with Apple employees and online and can get help. Customer can also have their phones repaired at Apple service. Apple get 90 days of free services on a 1-year warranty. Furthermore, when viewed from the Samsung company, Samsung strives to provide customer services with high quality and standards. Samsung continuously conducts surveys on the level of customer satisfaction with the Samsung company. As a result, in terms of services, Apple is more superior. When viewed from the services provided, they are equally good. Okay, from the value chain comparison between Apple and Samsung, we can see that Apple is slightly superior to Samsung. These are two large companies are quite competitive and have different strategies in running their business. And from infrastructure, Samsung is superior because the Samsung stores have spread across various countries, is more, and the employees owned by Samsung are approximately 2 times that of Apple. Furthermore, in the human resource section, Apple is superior because it has a good people management strategy to produce professional experts. And then in terms of accounting, administration, and the financial, it can be seen that Apple revenue is greater than Samsung in 2020. The next section is 5-porter forces analysis. It will be explained by my partner.
We will continue to discuss the second topic, the 5-porter analysis. In this segment, we will examine how substantial Apple's comparative advantage over Samsung are. We will assess many features that indicate Apple's dominance in business competition, starting from the threat of substitute, where Apple is nearly on par with Samsung due to the constant upgrading of its various product technologies. The two companies' results currently rank among the technologically advanced product, which is determined by the availability of spare parts. Because Apple and Samsung have started manufacturing their spare parts and rely less on outside inputs, their supply bargaining power are almost equal. Yet the two companies' individual supplier bargaining power position are equally crucial. The two stronger cooperation will be affected by these two areas in the value of competitor. Samsung created a considerable challenge for Apple when they upgraded their design to be more futuristic, but on the other hand, Apple does have a feature that can offer the best value, in particular, Safari. Therefore, Apple proved their superiority over Samsung. It will be interesting to observe how Xiaomi, a newcomer, threats of new entrants, compete with Apple and Samsung. Moreover, Xiaomi is less expensive than Apple while providing many of the same features as Apple. Meanwhile, Samsung is too budget conscious when it comes to product quality. Thus, the product given are not as luxurious as Xiaomi, so Samsung cannot compete with Xiaomi. And therefore, only Apple can compete with Xiaomi in this instance. As we previously noted, Apple has several advantages such as improved software, operating system, and design that attracts customers, even if customers are more interested in the company than specific product units. This 4 factors will decide the customer's bargaining power. In comparison, Samsung software and design provided enough draw to decide buyers' interest in the supplied product units. Due to the disparity in effectiveness, the two companies' abilities are equal in this regards. For the overall score, Apple is still way more superior than Samsung.
After knowing the comparison of Apple and Samsung, we will see how MNC can relate to the state. To do that, we have to do a mapping to see if the MNC can develop in Indonesia. The first one is factor condition. In terms of natural resources, Indonesia is very adequate and thus can be used. Second is human resources. Indonesia has very large population and it can allow Apple to expand. Last is technology. Although technology is not prominent aspect in Indonesia, Apple is able to make Indonesia technology more developed, and that's one of the functions in CSV. The second is demand condition, where domestic demand is very influential on the success of a company. Indonesia is a large country with a large population. The size of domestic market will be measured, and Apple will find it easy to figure out their own strengths and weaknesses. Indonesia with a wide market and had many domestic customers will certainly bring benefit to Apple expansion. The third is firm strategy, structure, and rivalry. This aspect has a strategic vision because it is important in facilitating the expansion to Indonesia. Apple firm strategy in Indonesia can provide customer satisfaction. Apple organizational structure in Indonesia support open communication between employees in Indonesia. Last is rivalry. Indonesia has local and global competitors. Apple must maintain its competitive advantage and create new innovation. The fourth is related and supporting industry, which will affect the competitiveness of the company. These linkages include the presence of related industry in domestic and international, which serve as a source of Apple expansion. Secondly, the presence of supporting industry that enable Apple to develop the business as a whole. Next is the presence of rival industry that can be challenged for the company to grow. And the last is the presence of supplier who will assist Apple in distributing its product. The four aspects are present in Indonesia and will allow Apple to compete and expand in Indonesia. The fifth aspect is government. How the Indonesia government influence company performance can be seen from three aspects. First is the government regulation, where the Indonesian Ministry of Industry support Apple investment plan in building an innovation center. The second is industry regulation, where Apple has required the government and private agency to follow applicable law and regulation when requesting customer information and the data. The last is the government as a challenger. Even though it is a challenger, the government can help Apple business and make a strategy to protect threats and weaknesses. The last aspect in Demetary is chance. Threats and events in Indonesia that can affect Apple are natural disaster. Operational activity will be disrupted. However, natural disasters do not fully threaten Apple in Indonesia because natural disasters do not occur in all of Indonesia at once. Therefore, Apple operating activity are not significantly affected by Indonesian natural disaster. From the aspect of Demetary, it can be said that Indonesia is a suitable place for Apple to expand.
The next one is business model. In business model of Apple, there are four categories. The first one is value delivery. In value delivery, there are customer segment that consists of Apple product buyers, service subscribers, music producers, store, and iTunes. The second is customer relationship that consists of social media, customer service, Apple stores, websites, operating system, and loyal community. And the last one is channel that consists of Apple offline store, e-commerce, official website. The second one is value proposition. In value proposition, there are profit that consists of tangible asset, which in March 2022, Apple recorded revenue of 97.28 billion US dollar with a net profit of 25.1 billion US dollar. And intangible asset Apple that consists of patents, which Apple as the owner or inventor of the goods has the right to market its products without interference from other parties. And then the next is trademark, is a logo owned by a company, and the last one is brand equity. The next one is people that consists of people management, where this strategy is exploring individual potential based on the abilities possessed by the individual, and also Apple provides opportunities for employees to study at Apple Park campus and Apple Development Academy. And the last one is planet. Apple use recycled product and Apple use carbon neutral goal for the next 2030. The third one is value capture. In value capture, there are cost structure that consists of manufacturing and distribution, salaries, marketing, platforms, maintenance fees, payment processing fees, management, and administration. The next one is revenue stream that consists of sale of product, subscription service, app store and in-app purchase percentage cuts, licensing fees, and cloud service. The fourth one is value creation. In value creation, there are key activities that consist of innovation, like iPhone will continue to innovate to be able to find a new products and compete with its competitors. The next is design and manufacturing. Apple will certainly do the design in order to find a suitable product to make a convincing design and technical combination that can generate profits. Next one is marketing and sales, customer service, and the last one is branding. The next one is key resource and capabilities. In resource and capabilities, there are marketing and sales, customer service, and branding. The last one is key stakeholder. In key stakeholder, there are internal stakeholders that consist of the board of directors, executives, employee, and shareholders. and external stakeholders that consist of customers, suppliers, competitors, pressure groups, local communities, and governments. So, after analyzing Apple through its business model, we can see that Apple already has a good business model in its operations. The business model of Apple is at the core of competitiveness from commercial relations as well as relations with government and society. So we can see how Apple can expand and survive in Indonesia as well through the business model.
To sum up overall presentation by analyzing through 4 points, we have concluded that Apple is more superior than Samsung due to the high competitive attitude that could be seen from the value chain and 5-quarter analysis point. Furthermore, due to the Apple maintain relation with the country where which is Indonesia by helping the education field and creating job opportunities, the company could expand their business peacefully without any issue by analyzing it through elementary and business model. Therefore, Apple could be expand and develop their company while at the same time being the top company.
We have come to an end. That is all from us. It's been an honor to accomplish this presentation as our final task and be able to attend this class this semester. Thank you very much and have a good day.